All right, come on in and have a seat. Okay. Well, Boker Tov, Shavua Tov, Brochim Habaim. My introduction is going to be very brief because anything I would say, I imagine our speaker is going to say as part of her story. But I want to remind you that last month, January, or 2 months ago, we're into March already, marked the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz by the Soviet Army as World War II came to its conclusion. As a part of that, it's a part of that story of the Shoah. Our guest this morning has some very, very interesting, she has a very interesting story. And I told her I'm not going to tell much of it because I'm sure that's part of her speech this morning. But I will say that, she and I just met a little while ago when she came here this morning. But I can tell from the way we talked and who she is and why she's here that this talk is not only going to be interesting in itself, but her delivery, her neshama is going to come through in this story very deeply. So, Hana Berger Moran, Bakasha.
Thank you very much. I'll say it again, of course.
Or you can stand, that's for you if you want. You can stand.
Okay, I will stand if it's okay.
That's fine.
So I can hold on to something and not to fall.
If you want to just talk,
Okay, I will do that.
Let's make sure.
Okay, Toda Rabba. I am honored beyond words to be here to see all of you and to see our future over there. The young people, that is.
Maybe you use this and keep this close to your mouth. Okay, it's not okay.
Okay, I'll try not to. Is that better? Yes. Okay, so I can actually move, if you don't mind. It's a great honor, but above all, it's beyond joy and happiness to be alive. And in 1944, when my mother was pregnant with me, as her 4th pregnancy, 3 didn't work. So she decided and talked to my late father in the train as they were being taken to a camp that they had a name. She has to have a name because if she has a name, the child will be born. Anything to believe in. So it was going to be a boy, it will be Michael. If it's going to be a girl, she will be Hannah. And my father just kept saying, my late father, the most important thing is take good care of yourself. Take good care of yourself. And mother, but I have a name. And she was just fixated on the name. And there was a lady sitting also on the floor of the wagon in which they were being carted away from their home. And she's sitting on the floor and she kind of comes closer. And she says to my late father, whose name was Tibor, and she says, Tibor, don't worry, I'll take care of Piri. She will be okay, she will come back with the baby, and everything will be fine, don't worry. And this lady, whose name was Edith, as Mom found out later, indeed did that. She took incredible care of my mother, and how she could do it, I have no idea. But to go back to the beginning, when they were taken to the camp, my mother and father, it was 4 days, no, it was a day after my father's 29th birthday. My father was a journalist who lost his job like many Jewish people did all over the Europe. And he started to work in a bank which was owned by a Greek person. But of course, my mother lost her teaching job and she had to do some other things. 4 days after his 29th birthday, there was banging on the doors, and they were taken. And all along, all my mother, as I saw earlier, would be thinking what would be the sex of the baby and what would be the name. But that was all. She says, that's all I will be thinking about, because that way I know it will happen. That was it. Yeah, my mother was very strong-willed and wonderful, wonderful woman. They got first to a small Slovak camp in a little town or village called Sereď, and 2 days later they were taken to Auschwitz. When they arrived, just like all of us have read what was going on there, after my mother was stripped, she was standing in a row with other women in front of Mengele, who was walking around with this little whip and pointing and asking questions of, are you healthy? Are you pregnant? Go to right or go to left. And he came, as my mother was hearing him asking the women, bist du schwanger? Are you pregnant? My mother wanted to step out of the line, and another woman just grabbed her by her hand and said, Piri, no. And I still have goosebumps when I think about it. And so she stayed in the line. Mengele comes over, and as she told me, his words were, also, bist du schwanger, frische Frau? Are you pregnant, good-looking woman? And my mother said, nein. So he looks at her, smiles kind of, and keeps on going. A few days later, my mother was able to see my late father for the last time across the barbed wire in Auschwitz, and all he was saying to her, Piri, take good care of yourself. And my mother, of course, said the same thing to him again and again and again. And it was the last time they saw each other. It was in October 1944, the end of October. A few days later, my mother was loaded on a train. She was very lucky. The clothes she was thrown to, handed over, was a brown coat dress, which was big. So if there was an option or future that she could show pregnancy, she was hidden. Anyway, this woman, Edith, took care of her. They were on the third portion of the third floor, if you will, of their beds, and she took good care of her. Whenever mother said something, I would eat something, Edith found it. I have no idea how. Well, yours truly was born on April 12, 1945, in a basement of the airplane factory where my mother was working with other women. She never talked about it much, except that once she was thrown a hammer at her because she spoke German and she was a little bit arrogant. She told the guard where to go, and she was thrown a hammer, but luckily not in the belly, so that was okay as far as she's concerned. And so she was giving birth on the basement of the factory, and she said it was like a theater. There were the prisoners, there were the guards, and everybody's taking bets. If it's going to be a boy, the war will continue. If it's going to be a girl, the war will stop. Now remember, this is April 1945. The Russians are coming from the East Front, and the American, thank you, U.S. Army is coming from the West and already is in Europe. So, yeah, there was a very good hope that the end is soon. Anyway, 2 days later, my mother was loaded with other very sick women into a van, or I don't know what it was, while other women from the camp were taken to the train station and loaded into open wagons, like for a coal. And when the drivers of the van that was taking the women to be killed in a forest not far from Freiberg heard the shooting from the Eastern Front, he got everybody back in the car, turned around, and came back to the train station. And my late mother, who rarely talked about the camp and about everything, she said that all the women who were already on the train started to clap a cheer. Yeah, the war is over soon. The war is over soon. Anyway, the only thing that I forgot to tell, that when I came to this world, the only thing I had to wear was a little shirt that one of the prisoners had sewn for me from her own undershirt, and a little cap which still had a Freiberg stamp on it. So that was my outfit. And of course, no diapers and no nothing like that. But there I was with my mother in the train, and we were moving to get to some other place where they would kill us. Well, the liberators were in most of the German places on the way from Freiberg, which is near Dresden, going down south to the western Czechoslovakia, and then keep on going. And on the way, we stopped in a small town called Horní Bříza in Czech Republic, Czech part of Czechoslovakia. And I guess I was making quite a lot of noise. And in the meantime, there was another baby born on the train, a boy. And so there was this young noises, and the head of the train master, station master, came to the German who was leading the transport and said, "Listen, you must be hungry and thirsty. I'm going to give you food, but let me feed these women too." About 150 dead women were taken off the train. 150 women were taken off the train to be buried somewhere, which the Czechs did bury them, as opposed to just doing what the Nazis did with Jews. But the captain of the train, or whatever was his title, he agreed. Yeah, they were hungry too. And he allowed the prisoners to be fed. And so there was a whole line. The people were coming to the train and giving food and drink. And of course, the head of the transport also got some nice slivovitz or whatever Czech liquor. That was also helpful, to allow for things happen. And so my mother, for me, got clothes. And she was saying, "You finally had something to wear." And the other mother, which was another part of the train, her boy was born, as I found out later, on the 20th of April, and the guard said, "You want to keep that date because that's Hitler's birthday too, so it will be okay. It will be good for your baby boy." And they kept on going, traveling in that horrible train until they got through Austria to Mauthausen. And Mauthausen, according to whatever the press that they were using, was still killing Jews or gypsies or whoever. So they got there on the 5th of May, 1945. As my late mother told me, they were trying to take me away from my mother, and she did put quite a struggle. And another woman guard, walked by accidentally. She says, "Wait a minute, I haven't seen a baby for 8 years. I want to play." So my mother just handed me to this woman guard, and then she followed her. And the woman was playing with me in her room, then dressed me up again, came out, gave meat to my mother, and said, go down to those barracks. They got empty. We don't have gas for you because it was used the day before for gypsies. There is God. I am sorry for the gypsies, but the Jewish women were not killed by the gas. And so, I do not know, I never found out whether my mother ate anything, drank anything. Of course, we are not talking about hygiene. Until the American Army, 3rd Army Division, Patton's 3rd Army Division arrived accidentally. They found out as they crossed the Danube by some people coming down the hill that you want to go there are prisoners and they will be killed. You have to go there to liberate them. There were 5 soldiers in that truck. And they went up there. Of course, they also called for reinforcements. So when they came, the Mauthausen was liberated on 5th of May, 1945. But my mom heard the music roll out the barrels from the cars as they were going up the hill. And she said, well, these are not Germans, that's for sure. And she stood outside with me and waited for somebody to come by. And there was a young soldier, about an hour or 2 later, with a helmet with Red Cross on. And my mother came to him, and having spoken English, of course, she says, I want to show you something, Look at her, isn't she beautiful? And as I found out much later, that this soldier, who became my dear uncle, just looked down because he was embarrassed to say that, oh no, she looks terrible. But he took me to the hospital, the army hospital, because I needed care, medical care. And my mother, when he said we need to take the baby, no problem, she just handed me to them. And of course they took her, they fed her. And 2 days later, a nurse is bringing me up to her building, to her barrack, crying. And my mother says, is she dead? She said, no, she's just tired. She's asleep, tired. So they did a great job, whatever they did. And several weeks later, I got birth certificate from Mauthausen, which says that I am a prisoner. You know, kind of, no, I'm not laughing. It is sad, but it is glad that it happened. And then my mother got on the boat to Danube, through Danube, to get back to Bratislava, because she was waiting for her husband, for my father. Well, she came to Bratislava with me. In the meantime, her uncle also got back from High Tatras, where he was a physician. The Garda and German were afraid to go to Tatras because they were afraid that they were partisans, that they will attack them. So luckily, those sanatoria were protected. So he got back to and was helping my mother, and my late father didn't. He was killed when the prisoners were being removed from the sub-camp of Auschwitz in Gliwice, or Gleiwitz, through the hill and forest of what is now East Germany, and he was killed somewhere there. Apparently, he didn't believe that my mother will survive, and he stopped eating. So he didn't feel he wants to stay alive. He didn't believe that my late mother will survive. Didn't he know her? Really? She was incredible. And so we lived in Czechoslovakia and Slovak part in Bratislava. My mother never ever talked so much about the camp. She never gave talks. She wrote an article once. She was, when I asked, you don't need to know. My life, no. She, the only thing which she instilled in me, you have to play piano, okay, so I had to play piano. You have to study well, you have to be the best student. I will not go to any of the details, no matter how silly they are, and or because of that. and she, above all, she never felt sorry for herself. It was beyond amazing. Strong woman, knowledgeable, beloved by her students, as I said before. And she gave me a good example how to be an adult. I'm still learning, but she was really an incredible woman. And never, ever said anything nasty even about Germans. She found this one German guard, Uncle Rudy, who was, when Eva was giving my mother something to eat and put it in her mouth, he turned his back so he doesn't have to see it. So there were some good people there too, of course. But most of all, what my mother was teaching me is to know who I am. Not necessarily to be proud, but know who I am, study, and give back. And she said, you have a lot to give back. And I still get goosebumps when I say that or I think that. So I thank you very much, because it's an honor to be here among Unsereiner, with my people. And if there are any questions, I will be happy to provide the answers. Thank you, dear Rabbi.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? If there are, I'm going to come out and give you the mic so that people who are streaming can hear the question, okay?
This is Morgan. First of all, thank you so much for sharing your story. Just super inspiring to listen to it. I grew up in Israel and just moved to Danville a couple of months ago. When you look at the news, at what's going on in the world today, what's your perspective, informed by history, about what young Jewish people today will have to deal with over the next 10, 20 years?
This is beyond.
Mike, use the mic.
Thank you. It is beyond shocking what is going on, and I feel very, very sorry for the next generation. And I have to say that every time I hear the lies, and there is lots of them, coming from above, if I should call it from above, from the government, it's horrible. That's how I feel about it. And I am not going to express or divulge what I sometimes feel very strongly.
Other questions?
Hana, thank you for coming. This has been wonderful. When did you come to the United States, and how did that all happen?
I came to the United States in 1977. How did that happen? First, I went to Israel, and there I studied at the Weizmann Institute. And when I finished the degree, the PhD, in organic chemistry of natural products, which, by the way, the natural products, the plants, were coming from Persia. Those were poppy plants, from which I was extracting morphine and other alkaloids and then modifying it so it will not be addictive. But that's past. Look at him laughing. And so I came to United States, to Chicago, to do the postdoctoral fellowship because I couldn't do it in Israel. There would be just one person that I could work with, but he was the one who's reviewing my thesis. So he was not the right person. Did I answer your question?
Other questions?
Thank you for being here. What advice would you give to the young people in the room and our future, hopefully one day grandchildren, for how we need to be as Jews and act in our society or stand up? Or what would you say to your grandchildren?
What I say to my grandchildren, one is 20, one is 16, I say to them, be sure to be true to yourself. Speak the truth when it is safe, above all, because the safety is the most important. And yes, you should let your friends know how you feel. But above all, keep safe, because this is a crazy world now that we live in, and it's very sad.
David, you have a question?
Again, thank you for sharing your
Thank
story.
you for being here.
I'm curious to know, if your mother did not tell you all of these intimate details,
No,
how did
she
you find out?
didn't. No, she didn't. Just occasionally, but above all, even though I have to disclose, there is a book, because I wasn't talking about my siblings of the heart. They were the other two that were born, one on the way to Mauthausen and one when we arrived at the station, Mauthausen. And we met finally many years later, and we became siblings of the heart. And so that's basically what it was. My mother was never talking openly about anything. Eva's mom was, and that's how the writer of the book, Born Survivors, found her. So Eva is the youngest, and we have a boy in the middle, Mark Olski, whose parents were from Poland. So I don't know many children who were born in the camp, but those mothers, the courage which those mothers had was just unbelievable in those circumstances.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good morning.
Hi.
I wanted to express and thank you for being here. I think it's extremely, extremely important that the survivors that are left speak up and educate as much as you can the youth of today. I think it's something that many, many young people are missing. Aside from that, both of my parents were survivors, and both of their families were totally wiped out during the war. The survival stories of my parents are incredible. And one of the differences I had growing up is I was told all about it, and probably from age 5. The stories became very real. The dreams, the books. I came across pictures of camp survivors, and I didn't understand it, but I knew what had happened. My question is to you, and you may not be able to answer. There's a lot of work being done on the genes that we carry. And do you feel that we carry that trauma forward into my children's generation? That's basically it. I'll speak for myself. I feel the trauma was definitely carried over to me, and I taught my children, and they've learned from their grandmother. She lived to 100 and died this summer. So they're very aware as well. But I see in their eyes now, when they were little, they didn't want to hear too much about it, but they did. And now they're teaching my grandchildren about it in a very simple manner, but definitely carrying on the efforts of what my parents went through to get out of Europe through Hebrew school. They're 4 and 7, and they've identified with being Jewish. I'm very proud of them. But I'm wondering about the trauma that's carried over from your generation to our generation.
Yes, I totally understand, and you are doing a wonderful job. Thank you with your family. Yeah, there is trauma, but the important thing is when my family was sad, my young family was sad, I used to say, first of all, we need to remember, because if we forget, it will be repeated as it is between us. We know what's happening. Oh. But above all, I spoke. I wasn't making it too horrible, but I always finished, sometimes just the part that I was talking about, but we are here. We made it. And yes, this is what hatred does. From one person to another, this is what hatred does. You cannot be constantly feeling sorry for yourself. You have to accomplish what you set to accomplish. But be careful. That was my message to my family, to my children, to my child. I have only one, thank God. but I was constantly judged as a Jew when I was a student in Czechoslovakia. The last one that I had was my classmate at university, mind you, classmate. He was telling the other 2 women, and I just came by, I said, hi everybody. She says, oh Hana, you should know this. You killed Jesus. And I said, I said, Eric, go study. It was the Romans. No, you didn't. No, it was the Romans, and I'm not talking to you. We still had another year and a half together in the same study group. I never spoke to him, and I never spoke to him at the 50th reunion either. I remember, says, you are not somebody I will even speak. But the hatred was there always. And my mother told me things that she learned even as a student. If there was something on the collar that those were Jews, it was folded, okay? Everything which was bad was Jews. Every item that was making you angry, it was Jews. That's how I grew up. And the best moment came when I came to Israel, when my uncle took me to Dizengoff, my mother's younger brother, and said, Hana, look around. That cleaner is Jewish. That streetwalker is Jewish. That other person is Jewish. It's not like the teacher, the harofeh, the doctor, and the pharmacist who are Jewish in your town. This whole country is Jewish. And the freedom that I felt in that moment was unbelievable. I could be who I am and then have my son there. And yes, we are here and I had to come and so did my son. But having said that, that is our home. And I just hope they save it. So let's think good thoughts.
Thank you, Hannah, so much for being here
Thank
today
you.
and sharing your story with us. It means a lot. My question to you is, have you returned to Europe and have you retraced any of the steps that you took as a child prior to going to Israel or the United States? And what was that like for you?
I went to Freiberg, and I was invited as an adult. I didn't go to Auschwitz yet. I was in Mauthausen several times. As a matter of fact, I'm going in May for 80 years anniversary of liberation celebration. And my savior, as I called it, Daddy Pete, his son is coming. And so the family will be there. My son is coming with his family. That was, I don't know why I still wasn't able to go to Auschwitz. As I said, Mauthausen I'm familiar with now. Above all, I am never afraid to say who I am. But if it's offensive, they won't see me anymore. And I encourage pride in our children for who they are. Smart, feeling, and beautiful. But above all, everybody keep safe. That's what we have to do. Keep safe. That's not selfish. Keep safe. Hi, Mommy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for sharing your story. We're very lucky to have you here today.
Thank you.
I'm lucky enough to have had some experience. I was on the March of the Living with a Survivor
Wow.
a while ago now, but my question is about our future generation, our kids and their kids. They are not going to have people like you to be able to share stories firsthand, and obviously through generations, it loses something. That, you know, I can't share what I know authentically like you can. What do you feel is the best way for us to keep, you know, your stories, the legacy of everything that happened, so that, you know, my kids' generation, their kids' generation, has an authentic way as possible, I guess, of knowing what really happened.
Yeah. One of the things that I can say is the books. There is a book about 3 of us, siblings, called Born Survivors. 8 years ago, I was contacted by a writer who was from England, who already met Eva's mom, who was still alive. And when she was telling Eva, "Oh, you are the only one like that," and she said, "Oh, there are another 2." At which point Wendy said, "I have to write a book." And Wendy came here, and we sat down, and this was now almost 8 years, and she's continuing to write books about Holocaust survivors or Holocaust that didn't survive Holocaust. But the bottom line is, it's not sad, but it is about all 3 of us. So I keep reminding them that I am the oldest. So and that's why when you ask how, just keep on having fun, learn, know, and choose what you want to do. Don't put anybody down. Everybody has their own worth. It doesn't matter where they are from, what they wear. It is to be true to yourself and honesty and be respectful. That's the message to my son, his children, even as I get, yeah, Ima, but they hear it.
What languages do you speak?
Slika?
What languages do you speak?
Me?
You.
My first language was Hungarian, because that was the babysitter, woman who killed my mother. And then it was, of course, Slovak, Russian, German, Hebrew, and English. And so Hungarian I do much less now, but it's language of Petőfi, so.
So I want you to know a little bit more clearly about this book, should you be interested. It's called Born Survivors, and the author is Wendy Holden. Wendy Holden. And I imagine it's available at the usual places. So it's the story of Hana and her two, what did you call each other? Sisters of the Heart?
Yeah,
the three sisters of the heart.
Siblings of the heart.
Siblings of the heart, right.
Mark,
Siblings of the heart.
Olsky, and Eva.
Okay. So it's Born Survivors. The author is Wendy Holden, and it's the memoirs of these three survivors. Anybody else?
There was somebody behind you. Hi.
Have you been contacted by Shoah?
Yes, I was. Oh, pardon. Yes, I was, but most importantly, I gave them my shirt and cap. It's in Holocaust Museum. I wasn't asked to talk, and it's okay. They have enough wonderful speakers. So we'll see. Thank you.
Rachel?
Thank you.
Okay. Rachel, could you join me up here, please?
Oh my goodness.
So we owe a debt of gratitude to Rachel, who saw to it that we had a speaker. So I'm going to give you a set of flowers. And these, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And as everybody else said, the message you had to give, the message you had to deliver this morning, this afternoon, or getting into the afternoon, is both in terms of what you had to say and how you said it. And I very much appreciate the both of those. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. It's been a real pleasure to meet you.
Be safe.
Okay, you too. You too.
Everybody be safe, especially on the roads.
Quick, good and loud. What's the question?
Just, I want to say, I'm Irish Catholic. It's an honor.
I'm coming.
It's just an honor. I'm Irish
Folks, one last round of applause, please. Thank you very much.